Welcome! In this series of videos, we will look at software add-ons for both the PowerBasic console and Windows compilers. Today we will look at doing web development using the Abyss web server from Aprelium. Today we're going to start our web development series by looking at a web server on which we can place our PowerBasic programs to do our web development. The web server we're going to look at is the Abyss web server. This web server comes in two versions, a free to download version and a purchase version. Today we're going to look at the free version. Firstly, we will power up another computer onto which we're going to install the web server. The Abyss web server comes from Aprelium. This web server software has many features, and as your needs from a web server grow over time, you'll find that the Abyss web server can cope with the majority, if not all of them. So the first thing to do is to download the software. And as I said, we're going for the free download, and you can download your web server to run on either Macs, Linux or Windows. Today we're going for the Windows version. The installation for the web server gives you the option of installing either the 32-bit or the 64-bit. I would recommend the 64-bit, assuming you have a computer that can support that. Amongst the questions asked during the installation will be how you wish the web server to start up. So we can start it manually, we can start it on a user login, or we can install it as a Windows service. Therefore, as soon as the computer boots up, the web server will kick into life. So we're going to go today with the install as a Windows service. And that's it. And naturally, it being a web server, we would want this to communicate on our local network. Otherwise, there would be little point of having the web server. Now our web server is installed, we can set the configuration of it. All this is driven from this web page. So if we click on English, and we can now set the login for the authentication of the administration user. And now it's asking us to sign in. Obviously with all passwords, you should pick a password that you consider to be secure. And now we're in. I would suggest saving the path to this as one of your favourites, as you may be using it quite a lot. So we'll add this to our favourites and we'll click Done. Now we can start to configure our server. By default, this web server will set itself up on port 80, which is the normal standard for a web server. It doesn't have to be 80, you can change it to something else, but that's what it defaults to. And from this page, you have the option of stopping the web server running or restarting it if it is stopped. So what can we do inside here? Well, let's look at the server configuration first. Clicking on Server Configuration gives you a number of options. Let's pick Parameters first. This tells you where the root of the web server is. At the moment it's on a C drive in a folder called Abyss Web Server. It has a timeout, a keep alive requests, a maximum of simultaneous requests, in other words a number of requests the web server is willing to accept. These are all the defaults we've picked, so we'll leave these at the moment. There is an advanced parameters, and again we'll leave these as they are, and a back-end operation support. This gives you a lot of flexibility when we get to the more advanced stages later on, but for the moment we're going to leave everything with its defaults. So let's go back to the page before. You can configure SSL or TLS certificates, we can pick the console configuration. And again, our protocol in this is HTTP. You can, of course, put a certificate in and go to secured HTTP. But for the moment, we'll leave everything as it is. You have a server statistics page which keeps track of how long the web server has been up, how many hits it's received, how many errors it's had, and so on. For the moment, since we haven't actually contacted this, they're all blank. Server activity, and again help and support. So if we leave everything as it stands for the moment, let's see if we can connect to our web server. The web server is hosted on Quad 003, so if we go back to our main computer. So now that we're back onto our main computer, let's see if we can connect to the web server. And yes, we have connected. The web server is displaying a standard index static web page. Pure way to let us know that we have successfully connected to the web server. We want to replace this static web page with one of our own. So we go back to Quad 003, we can reconfigure the web server. So the button we haven't clicked on yet is this configure button. We'll see there's a whole new set of things we can amend. So the one we're going to concentrate on is the general button. We click on that, it tells us the protocol is HTTP, we're using port 80, there are no host names set up, and the documents path is the htdocs folder. If we have a look on our machine, we'll find that inside the Abyss Web Server folder, there's an htdocs folder. And inside there is an index.html document, which is the static page we saw when we browsed to the web server. So we want to create our own index page to prove that we can configure the system to our requirements. So I've created a folder on the root of the C drive called website, and inside here we're going to place our own HTML page. This HTML document we're going to create will be a static web page. But in future videos we're going to create CGI applications using the PowerBasic console compiler, which will create dynamic pages. So if we create a brand new text file, and we'll call that index. We'll rename the extension in a moment, but we just want to do this in Notepad. Now a very basic web page would look something like this. An HTML open and an HTML close tag, and a body open and a body close tag. Within these two sets of tags, we can put something that will be displayed on the screen. So putting our piece of text within two paragraph tags will allow it to appear on the screen. Now this is a very simple and straightforward web page, and it doesn't do much. But it will prove the fact that we have redirected the web server to have a new index page. And I'm just using the h2 tag to make our text that a little bit bigger. So if we save that, and we will put an extension on here, and there is our index.html. Now we just have to point our web server to this new location. And hit the OK button. Now the console has identified that we have changed the configuration, and we need to stop and restart our web server for this to take effect. So this will bring down our web server, change its configuration, and bring the web server back up again. And it's back up. So if we go back to our main computer, and in here we had the link to our web server. Now if we don't actually type any static page after the name of the server, it will attempt to look for an index.html or an HTML document. So if we just hit enter on that, we get a message on the screen, welcome to our web server, which is exactly what we set up on our page. So over the next few videos we will be covering how to configure the Abyss web server for PowerBasic applications, and we will create PowerBasic applications which will display information on our web page either statically or dynamically, including a few AJAX calls. But we will cover those in the later videos. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.